Right, I'm making this short video to share my Articulate 360 design that I created to go with our organizational learning problem summary assignment for this week. This part is for that very first training, classroom management, routines, and goals. This was designed, as I said, through Articulate 360, and I know sometimes instructors have not been able to see the actual course itself because the link is specific, I think, to our district if you don't have an account. And I couldn't figure out how to add users at this point. So here it is in a video, and then I'll send some screenshots as well. So you can see in my title page, it also has the description of the course, which talks about why this course was created and what the kind of expectations are at the end of the course about what this module was designed to do. So I'm going to click on Start Course. And so this really is the piece that will go with that in-person training. So this will be some parts of the training where we will stop and pause and do some activities or reflection. The first part talks about why we need to create classroom routines and refine them, and then what some reflection questions that we're going to utilize throughout the class to look at, to talk about, and then maybe to revisit in certain parts. For example, you can see part 1 is a self-assessment about what's currently working. When teachers take this first course, they'll be about 3.5 weeks into the new school year. And so they'll have had some time to reflect on their current approach and what routines or strategies that they're using that they feel are successful. And then a place for them to discuss how they gain student attention at the beginning of class. What do they use specifically? Part 2 talks about growth areas and what they feel needs improvement. And so we're going to talk about that first question: what classroom challenge do you face most often in your class? And then we'll come back to the second question at the end of this portion of the training and think about what strategy they could use or that they're excited about using possibly to help them improve that challenge. And then part 3 is kind of our next step piece. At the very end, they'll come back. We'll have a discussion about what are some concrete changes that they could implement right away in their class, because the design of this course is to be immediately actionable. And then thinking about how they're going to measure whether they know it's working. So what's going to show them that it's measurable? This rolls down into the scenario piece. And so the scenario really talks about that teacher. So we're going to talk about what it looks like in class, what are some reasons that we set routines, some ways to do that. They're going to get a quick check guide that'll help them to teach procedures and routines and those kinds of things. And then we'll come to this scenario and they'll have some time to work through this on their own. So the objective of this is that teachers are going to be practicing what we've talked about kind of in their own mind. So following the NEPF standards that we have put forward. So when they continue with this scenario, it talks about Rosalie, who's a first-year teacher getting ready to begin a lesson. So some of her students are chatting, some are in their seats, and a few are engaged. So how should she start? So there's 3 choices. Let's get started. Open your books to page 25 and follow along. Start a timer. When the timer hits 0, I want everyone's eyes on me. And then when she buzzes, she begins. Or settle down, we have a lot to cover today and I need you to pay attention. So if a teacher makes a wrong choice, like let's say they choose number 1, it will say, this gets some students started, but doesn't provide a clear focus or structured classroom routine. So it'll prompt them to try again. So she gets the same choices, hopefully choosing the correct answer. This option uses a classroom routine to gain student attention and communicates a clear learning target aligning with her NEPF standards. So at this point, we continue. The second part of the scenario then pops up. After she starts the lesson, a student loudly asks, why do we even need to do this? Rosalie has to respond in a way that maintains the class control and reinforces learning goals. So Her three choices are ignores the student and continues the lesson, because I said so, now let's move on. Or great question, let's review our learning target. Understanding how to summarize will help you with reading comprehension in every subject. Again, when you choose an answer, it will prompt you as to why or why not that wasn't the best choice. So because I said so, now let's move on would say, this response shuts down student engagement and does not create a positive learning environment. Try again. If they choose ignores the students, ignoring the student might prevent classroom disruption, but does not re-engage them or reinforce the learning goal. Try again. And the last question is to be positive and reframe the learning intention, right? So acknowledging that, linking it to the real world application, creates engagement and reinforces our objective. At this point, they get to choose end the scenario or do it again, and they're done with that. After another portion of training where we're going to talk about some strategies, they're going to work together in groups and partners to create a poster about different strategies that they use, so kind of like a prior knowledge thing, and then an extension activity of categorizing those strategies. They'll have a way to drag and drop strategies into correct categories. So they'll have effective or ineffective, and when they drag them over, like positively framing redirections would be an effective classroom management tool, or only enforcing rules when students are off task would be ineffective. If they drag it into the wrong spot, it'll tell them, nope, sorry, try it again. So after they work through that, we'll come back together. The second part of the training talks about challenges that are common in classrooms. There is a job aid that's being designed that will have kind of a quick checklist. And so this is kind of a page through. So looking through the following common challenges by clicking on the little plus sign gives them the drop down so they can look through here. Like if they're having trouble with handling disruptions without escalating their students, they could click on the plus. The challenges, they're off task and disrupting others. The quick fix would be to redirect privately, not publicly. Like, let's get back on track. It gives them a quick fix to offer a positive choice. Would you rather do this or that? So each challenge has a couple of quick fixes that they could do. We'll come back together. We'll talk about some ways that maybe they do these things in class, and we'll provide strategies for each other. Again, they'll be getting that job aid that will help as well. And that finishes the piece on RISE 360. We would go back then and revisit our action plan and next steps before moving on to learning targets. So the very first training will be about 90 minutes. So we want to make sure that we have enough activities and discussion, that we have positive, actionable steps in their classroom that they feel comfortable setting up and establishing. And we want to do that early in the school year. Like I said, about 3.5 weeks in is our first early release day where they'll be utilizing this information. Thanks very much for listening.